I would like for a minute to explore and analyze this concept of the means of production. What is the means of production other than those means by which goods are produced? Can any goods be produced without any labor inputs? Even a machine which automates some of the production processes requires labor inputs to produce the machine, to maintain and repair the machine, as well as labor inputs to feed the raw materials, those materials themselves requiring labor inputs. Therefore, I conclude that labor is a necessary condition for production to take place, which is to say, without labor, no production is possible. If no production is possible without labor, then labor is the primary or the fundamental means of production. It is the mode by which production is possible. For labor to take place, a mind or consciousness must direct the body to act in meaningful and purposeful ways. And without a mind or consciousness, no labor is possible. And therefore, mind or consciousness is likewise the means of labor. The mind directs labor in purposeful action in order to satisfy human needs, either for oneself or for the needs of others in gift or exchange for the products of the labor of others. Therefore, each individual possessing a mind and a body, by implication of their mind directing their action in labor to satisfy needs, possesses in themselves the primary or fundamental means of production. Through these means, they may fashion labor-saving devices in order to increase either their production or their recreation. These additional but while secondary or tertiary means of production may become increasingly complex. They all fundamentally proceed from the individual's control or possession of their own body by their consciousness. And therefore, all persons, by their mind's control of their bodies, possessed in exclusion of others, possesses the means of production. So, some kinds of production may be possible without any tools at all, such as foraging, primitive agriculture, and I would certainly be in agreement that various tools may open up additional production possibilities, as well as increasing the efficiency of labor. But the prior reasoning would imply that all tools are produced ultimately by labor. Even if a tool is used to make a tool, ultimately something must be fashioned with labor to begin the process, making labor itself primary to the tool which fashions it. In this way, tools are a derivative of, or secondary to, the labor which must ultimately fashion them, as the tools themselves are not possible without the labor inputs, some ultimate generation or beginning of labor. So if I wished to make a knife and had no tools, for instance, I could perhaps in an hour, what probably could take an expert could do in a few minutes, I could fashion, a rough knife by flaking flint or obsidian. And of course, additional labor would be required in finding the appropriate stone materials, and a piece of antler would certainly aid the process of pressure flaking. And similarly, if a source of copper or tin can be found, bronze tools may be fashioned with primitive materials like clay and charcoal, and metal knives may be fashioned in this way. And certainly in the field, I have seen reclaimed metal being refashioned in primitive living and survival instruction courses. I've seen nails made into primitive drills, sheet metal into arrowheads, etc. And I give these examples to illustrate the point that though I may not personally have the knowledge or understanding to fashion the tools that I would need for a particular kind of production or particular production possibilities, this does not necessarily logically follow that it is impossible for me to fashion them myself. Um, I've seen forages capable of forming all manner of hand tools using fire bricks, some metal tubing, a leather bellows, a propane tank, and some other accoutrements. A leather apron, metal hammer, metal tongs, leather gloves, and but even with a trump and charcoal, the bellows and propane could probably even be dispensed with. So if the ultimate generation of all tools may be traced back to some kind of labor input, without which the tools could not have been generated, then I regard it as reasonable to conclude that labor is both a necessary and a sufficient condition for production, and sufficient knowledge or understanding of the mind or consciousness nearly all production possibilities. What prevents us from realizing various of these production possibilities is the specialization of labor within social cooperation, which doesn't require every person to possess the knowledge to make a knife in order to use a knife. Or perhaps said another way, an insufficiency of understanding, of the mind or consciousness to direct our labor into these production possibilities. But ultimately, they're still possible. And by this reasoning, I don't intend to imply that the person inheriting life with a few material possessions has all the same potential for lifetime production as someone inheriting great capital resources from the start. And nor do I intend to imply that poverty is a direct or necessary result of a lack of understanding. Though certainly greater understanding rarely harms matters. What I am suggesting is that every tool, machine, factory has an ultimate cause in the labor inputs. And those labor inputs all had the ultimate cause in the minds directing that labor. And if I can identify any meaningful referent of the term means of production, I think it must primarily refer to labor itself, and only secondarily to the tools and machines and factories ultimately fashioned by labor inputs and employed by labor. I guess I would just end with, I really think that means implies ends, and that only a mind can have ends, and that to select means to accomplish those ends. Tools themselves have no minds, they are only the means to the ends that a mind has selected, and therefore I argue that labor is the primary or ultimate means of production. My hope is that this argument could further the discussion as to the implication of the term means of production, and I suggest that if my premises are sound and the reasoning valid, then this would suggest that the term capitalism would be in need of redefinition, or else dispensed with as a term because it doesn't have a specific or determinative referent. So that's just kind of what I wanted to share with you, and thanks for watching.